A note to listeners, the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
I mean, our plan was to kind of surprise him so that he didn't have any time to think about it or figure out what he's going to do or plan, just, kind of show up. And he was really pissed off. He did not want to see me, he did not want me there. He was angry that she had allowed me to come.
Yeah, you really just have one or two guards with pepper spray, and then you're waiting 20 minutes for them to come down, pat it up. And I mean, a lot can happen in 20 minutes of waiting for that backup. And then they have to assess if it's even possible to go into the cage because they can't endanger the rest of the prison or an escape or anything like that. The first thing we brought up was the cartoons. So Charles Ng had drawn these cartoons when he was up in, I think it was Canada. This is before his trial, and they're depictions of all the horrific things they had done to their victims. And they're really horrific cartoons. So he had said that the cartoons were taken out of context by this cellmate who was a snitch and all of this.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast.
This week, we're going to check in with Laura Brand, who's back inside San Quentin State Prison. Laura was able to get in the cage with Charles Ng again, but this time she brought some backup.
Due to some security issues, Laura decided to bring in private detective and bounty hunter Rob Dick with her for the meeting with Charles Ng.
Laura has only been speaking with Ng for about 9 months and has been face-to-face with him for only a few days. So she's still feeling out Charles Ng, who other inmates on death row refer to him as a wild animal, and have warned Laura several times about meeting with him alone.
You know it's dangerous when you're getting warnings from other serial killers. But Laura is determined to extract information from Charles Ng about his missing victims. Having Rob with her inside the cage will allow her to focus on her questioning.
So today we're going to talk to both Laura and Rob to see how the meeting went and whether or not they were able to get any valuable information from Charles Ng about his victims. Today we have Laura Brand and Rob Dick, who has been spending a lot of time with Laura up at San Quentin. And recently, if you've seen some of the videos we've been posting on TikTok and YouTube and everything, they went in this past weekend and they sat down with Charles Ng after more than a couple weeks of this cat and mouse game that Laura and Rob have been playing with both Charles and the prison in order to get them to in the same cage with Ng. Because as we all know, Charles Ng wanted to meet Laura separately in a back cage that he's been selecting. She didn't really feel comfortable about it. So today we have Rob and Laura on and want to welcome them. And also, guys, tell us, get us up to speed. I mean, tell us what the day was like.
Well, it was definitely eventful the whole day. So we went in, and as we're walking up to Northside where he was, I had said to Rob, I go, you know what? He didn't know Rob was coming. So I said, Rob, why don't you walk up ahead of me? Because there's windows that look out. And that's how he had spotted me coming off of the East Block. So I said, Rob, walk ahead of me, check in, go talk to him. I'm going to be 2 minutes behind you, because I didn't want him to pull the eject button and see us through the window and call the correctional officer over and say, take me back upstairs.
Yeah, part of the problem, I think, is that, the people that are confined in the prison have a lot of say over how this works. I mean, even as far as getting approval, they basically have to approve a visitor ahead of time, and then the prison approves it. And then they have so much as even last time when Laura asked to be behind the glass, he threw a fit and canceled the visit because he didn't want to do that. So he has a lot of approval. So yeah, that plan was to hope to get past that where he wouldn't just end it before it even started. He wouldn't know who I was just coming in, but he can see everything.
Right.
And then it didn't go very well at that moment, because our plan was to kind of surprise him so that he didn't have any time to think about it or figure out what he's going to do or plan, just kind of show up. And he was really pissed off. He did not want to see me, he did not want me there. He was angry that she had allowed me to come, and he thought it was even kind of some setup because I came before her. And I said, what are you talking about? It's just she stopped to get something at the locker. She'll be here in a few minutes. I just wanted to come by and introduce myself so we could talk. And I don't know, he was very upset and agitated. And I think when moments later she walked in, he got a little bit calmer seeing her. He was still angry though. I mean, he told her he was going to cancel it and didn't want to go forward. But you can say how you played it, but it worked out to where he was kind of a little bit calmer and was going to go along with it. I think he had offered that I'd just be in there for a little bit and I would leave and then they could have their alone time.
Yeah, like when I walked in, I had turned and I saw Rob's face, and it was like, I could tell it was like not going well. So I walked over and he was really just like pacing like a wild animal in the cage. And I think it was one of the inmates told you, Rob, he's like an angry chihuahua all the time.
That's right.
And exactly what it's like. So I went up to the cage and he's just like, popping off saying, I don't know why he's here. Why did you bring him? And I was like, I told you I was going to bring my cousin. And he's like, I wanted to see you alone. And we're just trying to talk him down, both of us. And I said, well, why doesn't he just get in the cage for an hour? And he was about to say, no, I just want to cancel the visit. I'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, just let him come in for an hour. And I said, how about this? You're already down here. Let's get some food. Like, I always go for the food. Always calms him down a little bit. So I went to the vending machines, and then Rob came over and we started just packing a tray of food for him.
And I offered the same thing too to him. I said, hey, you gotta get your list of food. So what do you want? And I kind of said the same thing. And then I talked to Laura when we're over at the machines, which is out of earshot, and he's just pacing back and forth, being pissed off. But we could see that we were going to at least get in for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of see where it goes.
You never know how it's going to react.
No, you don't, especially with a new person in the cage. You never know. And he was actually the first serial killer that has ever given me a writer list. And I've showed it to you, Rob. It's a huge long page of everything he wants from the vending machine.
What is on his list? Just curious.
A lot. Burgers. He wants 2 cans of Cokes. He picks out 4 different candy bars, 3 different kinds of chip, 2 different kinds of ice cream. And then he's very specific on the number of condiments, ketchups, mustard. He must have mustard, not mayo, on his burger. He only wants pepper, and he wants exactly 10 pepper packets. It's very specific.
Wow. Have you ever seen that before, Laura?
No, that's my first time.
What do you think that's about?
Control.
Yeah.
It's all about control.
Because he's not allowed to take it outside the cage if he's got to eat everything in the cage, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He's in the cage. It's dominance. It's control. Yeah. Here's the list. You have to do this for me. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these guys want to give and take a little bit, and that's his way of saying, I want exactly this, exactly that. So, that's why I played into too, what can I get you while I'm here? And he started softening up a little bit because, you give it back to him, give him the power. And then the thing that was very concerning is that as we're ready to go in, we have the guard come up to let us in. They got to cuff him up and then let us in and do this whole process. Laura threw out there, hey, could we go to the number 11 cage because it's up front, and it's a little bit bigger. It's just a bigger, because there's 3 of us. And immediately, the guard says, no, he specially requested this one. He wants to stay in this one.
Yeah, the guards snitched him out right there because I was like, that one has more chairs. And he was like, no, I tried to put him in there. He wanted this one. And this goes along with what I had heard, that he was grooming correctional officers to put him towards those back cages, saying there's carbon monoxide in the front one.
Well, let me stop you right there, because I've been in prisons. I don't remember inmates getting to dictate anything like something like that. So it seems very strange that they would take a very high profile serial killer and allow him to kind of dictate what cage he's going to be in, and to make those decisions. So can you guys explain the psychology, why they would do that?
Well, I think, and I hate to say this about some of the, it's not so much, I'm not saying anything really bad about the guards, but they do, some of these guys have kind of a celebrity status. I've been in there visiting my guy and seen Scott Peterson in the cell over, and every guard that came out, hey Scott, how's it going? It's just like, it's funny how there's a difference, and I think, in that position too, you have to walk that fine line of authority, but also not being a jerk, because you're always outnumbered, you're always, I give a lot of credit to CDC guys. I couldn't do it. I don't want to be in, where the numbers are that far off. And
so it's their give and take.
Yeah. I think it is. I mean, to me, it's surprising though too, because I think we're walking a fine line as well, because we don't want an issue of CDC saying, "Well, wait a minute, there's a danger. Wait, that's why you want to do that." Well, then no, it's just not worth it. We're just not going to allow the visit. Period. So we got to be careful how we act too, because
Right.
we don't want it to get shut down.
But
Exactly.
there's always a danger.
Right.
I mean,
No,
the first time I was ever locked in a cage with an inmate was when I went up there with Laura. I mean, I've been to like 10 or, almost all the CDCs in California. And I was never, and I would be in there for like 10 days at a time. And I was never locked in a cage with, even if it wasn't a serial killer, it was anybody.
Well, and that always surprised me as well too, because my first experience was with my guy, 20 some odd years ago, and I had been into jails and other prisons where there is a partition usually, or you're on a phone or you're talking, with not in the same cage, and to be locked in there, with the other person, especially on the first time, you don't know what you're up against. And the way they do the kind of a Sallyport system where they'll cuff the inmate up, bring him to the inside where it's secure, shut that door, and open the outer door to let you in, just like you went through, and then open the interior secure door to put him back in, so that the inmate has never a way to get to that outer door. The problem with that is that if something goes down, it's going to be a long time before anything can be fixed with that. I mean, you've got usually 2 officers that would mainly just fill the cage with their can of pepper spray and do a lot of yelling until the goon squad comes in to do an extraction. And by that point, it's whatever needs to be done is done on that part. So that's always the inherent risk.
Yeah, you really just have 1 or 2 guards with pepper spray, and then you're waiting 20 minutes for them to come down, pat it up. And I mean, a lot can happen in 20 minutes waiting for that backup. And then they have to assess if it's even possible to go into the cage, because they can't endanger the rest of the prison or an escape or anything like that.
Yeah. All right. So you got in, you got him some food. Seemed like he's playing ball here. So what is tell us how the conversation went after that.
Well, it was funny because of what he said right when he sat down. We gave him the food and he said, "We're just going to eat. We're not going to talk." That was his first thing he said. And Rob and I had him talking within 5 minutes.
And he actually got a little irritated at that, like not at us, because he was starting to get more and more relaxed. And I've never been in person with him. Laura has, but he got reasonably comfortable quicker than I think he wanted. And he even made the comment. He goes, "See, I'm telling you things and I don't even know you. That's why I didn't want to do this." Because he can't help himself from talking.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
And we had told Charlie that Rob was going to law school. So he was a law student. So then he started talking about, everything about his case and, the system, which they always love to complain about. So Rob was just kind of like, yeah, I understand. Kind of like doing that tactical empathy with him. And he started warming up pretty quick.
So does he believe that he's innocent?
I think he has, like a lot of these guys well, not all of them, but a lot of them have deep down, I'm sure he knows he's wrong. I mean, there's so many things, especially in his case, that, you have in your back of your mind. You're like, okay, dude, whatever. You're telling me this. Yeah, I know better than that. But he does, he thinks, oh, he got wronged by the change of venue to Orange County. Orange County is just a rubber stamp convict county. And that's why he's on death row. If he'd have been either in Canada, been able to stay in Canada, he'd probably be out now because their system's not as severe. And if he could have stayed in Calaveras, but it's too small of a county, and just, everything's against him. And I think what the insight I had from Laura and them were, to try to find that bonding point of something, something to bond with him. So he came up with the law school theory, because I know enough about law. I've been in the courtroom forever that I can pacify that. So now when we start talking about cases and, ineffective counsel and, reasons for appeals. And
all right, so Rob, go back and you're talking a little bit about how he was talking about his case.
Yeah, so I, with the premise of that, I was, 4th year law student, and we started talking about law and what, he felt was wrong, where he was wronged in his case. I was able to kind of play along with it and, oh yeah, that sounds like ineffective counsel, and, potentially there's an appeal issue there. And, and then I think that really got him going. And yeah, it was surprising too, how much he loosened up. And then that allowed Laura to kind of come in a little bit stronger on what she wanted to get, because from where I was just being her cousin, I didn't want to come off like I knew anything really about the case.
Got it.
I was just listening and letting him tell me where the problems were. And then I think, his body relaxed. It was, because that's one thing that I always do, no matter which one, whether I'm with my guy or not, because of that danger factor. There's a lot of process of how I would sit, more aggressively or leaning forward as to how they sit to see, how this might go. If someone's leaning forward on the balls of their feet, they might be ready to pounce or do something. And he seemed to kind of, lean back and eat. And, you can see his temper come in when he would talk about certain things where he felt he was wronged by the system. He would get a little angry while he's eating, But I think overall for the visit, it was, I don't know that it could have gone any better.
It was, I did get to kind of get a little more aggressive because Rob was there, and, having that other person allowed me to kind of go harder. So if he got angry, I had the other person to kind of calm him down. And I think, Rob, you were even surprised with some of the questions that I went at him with. The first thing we brought up was the cartoons. So Charles Ng had drawn these cartoons when he was up in, I think it was Canada. This is before his trial, and they're depictions of all the horrific things they've done to their victims. And they're really horrific cartoons. So he had said that the cartoons were taken out of context by this cellmate who was a snitch and all of this. And I brought up actually the babies, and I said, because it said that he microwaved one of the 19-month-old boys that he killed. There were two 19-month-old boys that they killed, the babies, and one was allegedly microwaved.
Oh,
my God.
Yeah.
And did you ask him about that, or?
Yeah, well, it's in the cartoon. It's in one of the depictions of the cartoon of them stir-frying the baby and a woman serving. It says microwave baby, and she's carrying this tray of a cooked baby on this tray in the cartoon.
Ugh.
And what was his response when you asked him about that?
I don't remember. There was a couple of things we asked him specifically about the babies, but he said the cartoons were taken out of context, and he was denying that he had microwaved the baby. He said, microwaves back then were a luxury item. I looked it up. It's 1 in 4 households at that time had microwaves. So, but they were also looting a lot of the houses and the families that they had killed. So it would not have been impossible for them to have come across a microwave. So then I said, when he said, I jumped on the fact he said the baby had not been microwaved. And I had said, well, the babies have never been found. Maybe if we go and find the babies, we can prove that. And I looked at Rob and I was like, right, can your law professor help us with that? Why don't we go find where the babies are? And that's when he started going, whoa. We're not going to go there. We're not going to talk about the body locations.
Yeah, he had a lot of trust issues.
Yeah.
He mentioned it several times. He's always been screwed over. Other cellmates have snitched on him. He doesn't know who I am. I could be, I could be a cop or somebody. And so he said that, I could be a cop, I could be anybody. He doesn't want to get into details. But then, Laura's very good at kind of directing someone back into the detail of it and trying to keep on point. Even the part about, she asked him, well, you can explain it, but a part about whether he was worried that Lake might kill him. Talk about the brother.
Mm-hmm.
About what? Say that again.
Go ahead, Laura. If you want to
I had asked him, this was later on, I had said, he was trying to blame Chip to Lake, and I said, were you ever scared that Lake was going to kill you? And he instantly said no, which I thought was really interesting that he instantly said no. And I go, well, he killed his own brother and his own best man, and we all kind of laughed. And Charlie was like, yeah, but what's interesting about that is it's never been confirmed that Lake had killed his own brother. Charlie started laughing and said, yeah. Charlie confirmed it.
Confirmed that he did kill them.
His brother. Lake killed his own brother.
Yes, and who is Lake again, so people who don't understand who he is?
That is Charles Ng's crime partner, Leonard Lake, yes.
Leonard Lake.
He took a cyanide capsule when they were caught and killed himself.
The backstory early on was that he took his brother for a ride. He'd always hated his brother, and one day he shows up at the house where he's living with his mom and takes the brother for a ride, and the brother's never seen again. So the assumption was later, after all this comes out, that he had killed his brother. But what was very interesting is when she asked him, about was he afraid of Lake, and he nonchalantly was like, no, I was worried about that. And then she says, well, he killed his own brother, and he kind of laughed, and well, that's true. He confirmed that Lake had killed his brother.
Yeah,
that was
and there's
knowledge to him.
Yeah, his brother was never found, correct?
Correct.
So, all right. So there you go. I have a question about his legal status. Where is he right now? Is he trying to get an appeal, or is he working with an attorney to try to kind of do whatever he needs to do?
Yes to both. Yeah, he has an appeal in the works. He's working with an attorney. He's very worried with the appeals and stuff. But it was a good segue for Rod to shoot in and be like, maybe I can help you.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
he was intrigued because Laura brought up that my professor, takes cases pro bono, looks into these very unique cases with special circumstances on premise of freeing wrongfully convicted. Yeah, because we talked about, he was mentioning how Scott Peterson, of course, has more money, so it's easier for somebody that has money and particularly white. As he said, he has like Innocence Project jumping at it, and it's all about money. And he's, of a different race. He's, it's a lot of it's all poor me. It's everybody's against me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But he was intrigued by that of the possibility, which is kind of a segue to come back at him of like, hey, yeah, my professor is really, really interested in this, and we want to kind of make you a project for class. That'll help
Yeah,
me.
because he does pro bono work for, inmates, and he specializes in death row cases to like really get him excited. And then I was thinking in the back of my head, if he ever wants to meet the professor, Rob's professor, it could be Dr. Alan Pass, maybe,
Exactly.
or somebody. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So he actually, I'm just curious on what he's appealing. I mean, because he was convicted with quite a lot. So
Well, he's trying to say it was all
it was
Lake.
Lake.
Yeah, and then something that Rob and I, God, I think a couple of weeks ago, we spent 8 hours trying to search for Lake's wife or ex-wife during the crimes, to talk to her. And the night before, Rob and I were texting back and forth, calling back and forth, and we had watched this detailed thing on their case, and we're talking back and forth, and it mentioned the ex-wife, and that was something we wanted to bring up to Charlie, and that was something we touched on too, is why she got immunity, and did she know anything? And he definitely downplayed his relationship with her, but he had actually gone to live with Lake and his wife. I think it was for 6 months or up to a year. He lived with them, so he downplayed her. But when we started questioning more about that, he had said that she actually went to the cabin where the crimes were being committed, and actually went to spots where Lake had buried stuff. She knew where everything was buried, unburied it, and took it. And I actually spoke to an officer who was at the cabin at the time, and I had said, what happened that day? He goes, we only got in the bunker because she had come up and locked the doors to the cabin, so I didn't get into the cabin, and I had to leave the next day. So he confirmed that she'd come up, taken some of the stuff, like unburied some of the stuff, and locked up the cabin when the police were there.
Unburied what? You said unburied.
Well, they had buried.
Some of the manuscripts, because Lake had documented everything in manifestos, journals, diaries, videotapes. They videotaped everything, Polaroid pictures. Charlie was saying she took some money that was buried, but nobody really knows. All we know is that she took boxes of stuff that was buried, but nobody knows what those boxes are filled with.
So
the one interesting thing that he brought up about the relationship, as far as distancing himself, was he was trying to make it perfectly clear that him and Leonard had a relationship, and that Leonard and her had a relationship, and it was kind of whatever they did, but she knew everything.
Oh, like a...
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was Ing involved with Leonard romantically or sexually?
Well, my own feeling is that the three of them, not only seeing some of the things on the tape, some of the tapes with her, because later she said that some of the things that she had taken, because it's common knowledge that she had taken things, because she got immunity. She got an attorney immediately and got immunity on testifying, and she only copped to taking videotapes that she was on, that it was basically private moments between her and Lake. But I mean, these three were together.
Yeah, I don't understand. Unless, did she testify against Charles and her husband?
They had her on the stand, but she was only on the stand for a couple minutes, and they barely questioned her. Yeah, it's kind of a mystery surrounding her.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird instances with it, because she separated from Lake before all this went down, but yet lived with his mom. And then when Charlie ran, the original arrest, when all this kind of broke open, he ran to her, and she assisted him in leaving. So there's a big connection between the three of them.
There is. She gave him, I'm pretty sure, the money in the fake, or did he already have the fake ID or passport or something? She gave him stuff to get to Canada.
But he really downplays that there is that three relationship, that it's her and Lake and him and Lake. But we know better than that.
Yeah, it all smells really bad. I just can't believe... I mean, I'm surprised that if she didn't testify against him, how does she get immunity?
no one can answer that really, except for the
Yeah.
prosecutor. It's mind blowing to me.
And this was done in Orange County?
Well, it started his
Started
trial
in
Calavera.
started in Calavera, so I'm not sure when that happened. She had the attorney early on.
Yeah.
She had to give them something.
Yeah, must have been.
You don't get
But,
immunity
I mean,
for nothing.
Right. And and remember, there's only one case. It's the case against Charlie because Lake's already dead.
Yep.
And, just the whole thing was weird about her involvement as far as, she didn't get prosecuted. She got an immunity deal. So, yeah, she had to give up something. Right?
Yeah. And you got to remember, too, the cabin is hers. That cabin where everything was happening was actually her cabin.
And I think law enforcement, there's a documentary where law enforcement, some of the original guys back then, had kind of admitted that they were kind of treating her with kid gloves to not, because, they didn't know all this yet. They're just finding out, hey, why did Lake kill himself?
Mm-hmm.
And why does he have these IDs of missing people? So they're treading lightly with her because she's voluntarily giving them access in the beginning until they actually figured it out. And then they had to get the search warrants, and then, then they're in control. But in the beginning, they're trying to get as much as they can, as long as she's saying, sure, let's go up there.
Yeah.
But part of that problem was that she said, it's way up in the hills, let's go tomorrow. And then they find out she went up the night before. So it's unknown what this.
Does that cabin still exist?
Yes, it does. They actually found Charles Gunner, one of the victims, who was never recovered in 1993 by the new owners of the cabin.
Wow. And the new owners obviously knew what went on up there, or did they just?
Oh, I'm sure there was disclosure.
I'm sure. I believe, in California, you have to disclose if there's been a natural death, either suicide or homicide.
Mm-hmm. So how many bodies do you think are up there?
Well, they're not sure.
Yeah, we got up to, with the 21 missing girls, and then we did the body count for looking at 29, but that's all that we know of. And then we got who knows what else is still buried out there as far as videotapes, journals. We don't know if she got everything, if there's still more up there. I mean, for the new owners to find the body, it's really hard to tell what else could be out there.
All right. So you got him. He started getting quiet when you talked about Lake's wife. What else did you talk to him about?
Well, when he said to me about the babies and the cartoons, and he tried to say, it was blame shifting onto Lake and she didn't microwave the baby. I turned to him, and actually, Rob, you looked at me and you were like, whoa, when I said it. I was like, well, you said on the videotape, because there is a videotape out in the public, you can watch it, where one of the mothers is tied up and Lake is filming and Charlie is there. And she goes, where's my baby? Where's my baby? And Charlie says to her, your baby is dead. And so when he was blame shifting it onto Lake, I said, well, you said right in the video, the baby is dead. And he started going, whoa, 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 and like getting all frazzled by that comment. Yeah. And he was like, what did he say, Rob? He was role playing with Lake or something. He was trying to say that.
Yeah, he was trying to say that, like, the video, because I think part of the premise too was, there's that meeting between him and I. I'm there because I'm the protective cousin. I mean, we kind of had that discussion because in the beginning, going back, he was really frustrated that I was there, and I just kept saying, you understand that. I said, I've known everybody she's gone out with, and now whatever you guys are hanging out and stuff, I got to meet you. And so I said, you have to understand that, as one guy to another. And he kind of was okay. But then when the part about the videos was coming out, I'm not sure whether he was trying to still be that good guy for both of us, or that's his real belief. But he's trying to say that, well, when you take one part of a video instead of like the whole movie or whatever, it could be looked at differently, just trying to downplay, because I'm sure in the back of his mind, he knows we've all seen the video. We've all seen him in the video. We've all heard his voice. We all know what happened. And now he's trying to say that was kind of it's not what it sounded like. It was that I was role playing with Lake and saying certain things because he wanted me to say that, and he's just trying to.
It's clear in the video that Lake did not want him to say that, because she gets hysterical, as any mother would, and Lake quickly has to clean it up and say, no, the baby's fine, just do what we say.
Right, yeah, it's not a scripted thing that he's doing it because he's being told, but that's what he's trying to put off, that it was all Lake was the aggressive and he was just doing what he said.
Wow.
It looked like he's a nicer guy.
A lot of psychological gymnastics going on in that brain.
Yeah, he did have a different persona than what the rest of the world's seen, so is that the kind of chameleon where he's kind of low key and everything? Because you can tell by his influx in his voice and certain way he says his things, the anger there.
Yeah, now we heard it in the phone conversation with Laura. It goes from him being angry and pissed off to like him being docile and say, okay, yeah, okay.
No, his anger is like bubbling over the surface. You can definitely feel it.
So how long
Especially
did you
when
guys?
you're in the prison.
How long did you guys spend in the cage with him?
2.5 hours? We did the whole visit. Yeah.
It was a full visit. Yeah, he got past that, because I was supposed to leave after, I don't know, half hour or an hour, and we just kept going. And like I say, I think he was really relaxed towards the end.
He was.
As far as the conversation. I mean, again, Laura would know more because she's had different interactions with him. But to me, he seemed really relaxed.
Yeah, like his body stance was open, his legs were spread, he was leaned back. It was his body language was saying open. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had said at one point, we got to keep the time, because we don't have much time. Remember, he said, all we're going to have time to do is eat. And, basically saying we're going to eat, you're going to leave, and then he'll have his time. But it changed to just normal visit and talking about whatever.
Seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.
Yeah, by the end, I think we were actually all joking and laughing a lot. He had said that. He'd even opened up and said to me, he was like, oh, Michael Gargiulo told me, pat you down for a wire, Laura. And I was like, oh, he said that? And I was like, is that why you're always patting me down? And I patted Charlie, and we were just like kind of all jovial at the end, and it was good. And he actually turned to Rob, and he was like, saying, I'm starting to trust you right at the end there.
Okay.
Well, that's important because when people hear that, they're like, how can you be jovial with a serial killer? He killed babies. He did all these horrible things. So I just want them to understand why you have to do that.
It's tactical. I mean, you have to. You're not going to get it by going in there and doing an interrogation and hammering them. That's why it's a push and pull. You'll hear me go at them with the hard questions, but pull back, when I need to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people from the outside especially don't understand that, both of us are dealing with some of the worst people out there. And from a law enforcement standpoint, and me coming from a law enforcement standpoint, I get how that's played. It's usually, hey, this is it, no BS, you tell us this, you tell us that. And you have to be careful not to come from that same position. I mean, you have to build this relationship. You have to form some kind of trust or some common level that you can exchange things back and forth so that information does come out.
How does that affect you guys personally?
I think it's exhausting.
I was going to say that too. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting. I mean, I was kind of laughing to myself about that because I had gotten a room close. I could be close to the prison, and Laura's at a different place, and we had talked about kind of meeting and kind of going over the notes, and it was both of us just like, we're just going home, going to bed.
Yeah.
And then you think back, you're that tired over 3.5 hours, and I think it's just the mental games, the mental games back and forth.
Well, not only that, his energy is the energy level. I mean, when you walk into that room, I wasn't in the same room as you were, Rob, but the other room with the other cages were, you can feel the energy just start sucking you dry just from being in all that with the cages and the COs and the other offenders and the other cages. It's heavy energy.
Yeah, it is draining. It can take me up to weeks sometimes after like a round of interviews to physically get back to normal.
And I think too the preparation in your mind going in to try to think of all the possibilities and then where it's going to go, and then finding out how the interaction goes, because especially on this one we really had no idea how it was going to work out. It could go from as bad of not bad and danger, but just no, we're not going to have any visit, to possibly a dangerous visit, to now it seemed like it went okay. You can't ever let your guard down or not be wary of something, but hey, we went the full time, everybody seemed okay, and now what's the next step?
It was way better than we both expected. We both kind of walked out and we're like, wow, that was way better than we'd hoped for, especially with how it started out. And he was ready to just call it quits right there in the beginning. So
did you keep the door open that maybe your cousin's going to come back with you?
My cousin is coming back with me Saturday.
Got it.
But he does not know that yet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and that's part of the thing, is that can't give these guys time to think about things.
Right.
Yeah, that's all they do is have time to ruminate and figure out everybody else's angle. And, because they have a criminal mind and they live in a place where you can't trust anybody, they're creating all these scenarios in their head. But What else can you share anything else that you kind of were able to get him to talk about that you think it's worth talking about?
Getting him to finally open up about the babies and what happened. And then, he pulled instantly back when I said, well, why don't we go find the babies because then we can do some forensic testing. He got weary, but it's still like open the door, I think, to get those extractions right there. I'm still, I really want to work on Paul because Sharon, his sister's desperately trying to bring him home. So, but I think the door has been opened and he's starting to build a trust with Rob now. Hopefully, it's just a matter of safety with me, with him. He keeps trying to get me in that back cage. And, he sent me a message afterwards. You're coming tomorrow, correct? And you're not going to ambush me. And when I walked out of the prison, though, the San Quentin officials pulled me aside and canceled my visit for Sunday because they were worried about my safety. It was just canceled for Sunday. We're still on for Saturday. And then Sunday, Rob and I went over to East Block. He was meeting with Shermantyne, and we spoke with Mark. Rob and I were speaking with Mark, who's been giving us a lot of details about Ing, and he's been worried about my safety from all the prison buzz. And we were just game planning of what we're going to do for Saturday. And right now we have Mark and Marlo, who we've had on. They are working in this week from within the prison about, you should really be nice to her family kind of thing to get him nice and ready for Saturday.
Okay,
so he's not in an aggressive mood when we walk in that door.
Got it.
Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of behind the scenes things going just to keep it on track because, it's like you said, that's all they do is have time to think. And, it kind of amazed us, even that little brief thing that we did of a separation where I came in first, his mind was already working at that point, like it was a setup and something's weird about it.
Oh, yeah.
And then we were concerned on the cancellation of the visit because apparently the guard had seen, our interaction when it first happened, when it first started before we went in. And then Laura had asked to Saturday to go up front so that it would just easier, even if he wants to go to the back, let's just go up front so there's more room. And for somewhere in there, they decided they didn't want to, they canceled her visit. And so then we were concerned that may give him some kind of a issue of, oh, this is a setup, it's got to be them, whatever. So they're really doing the heavy laying of, well, you did this to yourself. You acted like an idiot in the beginning and the guard saw that. So knock it off, Don't disrespect the family.
Yeah.
It was funny too because when he saw Rob and he was like, I think, you know what, he is probably your cousin. He does look Italian. And I think Rob looking Italian is what saved us.
There you go. Paisan.
That's right. We're all paisans. So what is the rest of your plan for the week? You're going to go see him again this weekend. And then what else is happening? Are they still shipping people out on buses? And
yeah, there's been 20 inmates have gone out last week and probably another 20 are going out this week. There's been 2 serial killers in that 20. So William Suck has been shipped out and Michael Gargiulo was shipped out.
So they're just vacating the entire prison?
Pretty much, yes. Well, not the entire prison, not mainline, but death row, yeah.
Just death
Just
row.
death row, yeah.
Just death row. So like 500 guys, right? 500 plus guys.
Yeah.
Almost 600. I think it's like 576 or something.
so really quickly, just to go back, so when the guards talked to you the other day about not going in, they were concerned because Ing wanted to put you in that back cage. And he's okay though with Rob coming in with you now so that you don't have to go into that cage, right? It's a different cage.
We'll find out when we get in there. Well,
On this visit, no, we ended up in that cage.
You
but
did?
he didn't
Yeah.
know I was coming.
Right.
yeah.
His plan was to have Laura in there, and he told the guard he specifically wanted that. And that was a really big red flag for him, almost demanding that get in that back cage with her. And he had no idea that I was going to show up. And when I showed up, I think that was part of the anger. He was pissed.
Mm-hmm.
He was pissed that I was there, pissed that he was blindsided. And he said, she lied to me. And I said, what are you talking about? She told you I was going to come. This is part of it. I have to see who you are first. And then it all started, going down a little bit. But in the beginning, he was pissed. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was in what would have been a very dangerous cage if I had been there alone. Because it was the second to furthest one set back.
And he brought that up too, which is kind of weird too, because it wasn't prompted by us, and there was no discussion of it. He just out of the blue.
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, what does anybody think I could do to her? I'm in here. The guards are over there. Which is not a true statement.
Unprompted. Yeah, he just said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to do anything. There's guards here. Out of nowhere.
That's usually a clue.
Yeah.
Well, be careful because you never know what he has planned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good you got some ears on the inside.
And a bodyguard with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you guys got out and you did the little video, which we posted on our TikTok and all over, you were talking about the cadence and the chanting that was going on behind you. Talk a little bit about that and why were they chanting? Did you find out?
I don't know exactly why. I've heard it the last couple of weeks. Every visit I've been in, I've been hearing it. And Rob, was it your first time hearing the cadence?
I've heard it before, but really didn't understand what it was either. It's just, I guess it's more of a in unison, showing power, that they're all together when they chant all together, because it's really loud on the outside.
Oh yeah, you could hear it.
It sounded terrifying, FYI, for people.
Yeah.
I was surprised it got caught on audio from that far, because we were all the way in that parking lot.
Yeah.
It was still captured on audio.
No, you're like a good quarter mile away.
I mean, it sounds like they're about to storm the place down.
It does.
Yeah,
it sounds like a riot is starting.
That's what it sounds like.
It's a real loud rumbling.
I heard the similar kind of chant when I was on the yard at Corcoran, like in 1999, and right after right when that was happening, something happened on the yard. It was a yard fight. It was almost like creating a distraction for something else.
Laura, have you heard that before?
No, it's my first time. Yeah. It's been happening every like the last two weeks. I've been hearing it.
Well, there's a lot of upheaval in that facility right now. Yeah. With moving all those 500 plus death row inmates, and what are they going to do with all that space? I'm sure it's going to get filled up very quickly, but if they're going to have mainline population there and they're calling it the rehabilitation center, what level of security is it going to be? Is it going to be minimum security, or is it going to be maximum still?
I've heard it's going to be level 2. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a little bit relaxed. It may even be where they used to send them to Vacaville for the 90 days. I've heard something about that may be the place they go now when they first come in and figure out where people have to be shipped to.
Like an inmate reception center?
Yeah, because Vacaville used to be that. And I guess they stopped using Vacaville, so it's getting full.
Well, it's getting bad because, they first told the inmates that they could go, to prisons near their families. But now they're going back to committee, and they're pretty much placing them all over the state wherever there's an empty bed. And a lot of the guys are getting shipped up to Pelican. And even Wes, Rob, he was supposed to go right next to you.
Yeah, we're still not sure. He was hoping to go to Folsom, and he made the comment, because I said, well, what happens if it's, not, he originally wanted Stockton or Folsom. And, he made the comment that, now it could be Pelican Bay, it could be High Desert, or it could be Delano all the way down San Diego. And he's like, if I go to any of those three, I might as well just take myself out, because no one's going to see me. I'm not going to have any contact, and I'll just be done. So we're all kind of hoping that doesn't happen. There's a lot of stuff moving on that.
So Wesley Sherman has not been moved yet?
No. And he doesn't think he's moving super soon yet, which is good, because hopefully I'm going to get a couple more visits with him before something happens there.
Mm-hmm. And your timeline with him, obviously, you've been spending a lot of time with him. What are some of the things that you're trying to get from him?
Well, there's actually kind of a big operation going right now that I'm not sure how much I can talk about, but he, law enforcement, both FBI and the original agency, which is San Joaquin, paid a big visit with him last week. And part of that reason is that they have the same fear that A, he might be sent somewhere too far to make these visits, and B, kind of a last ditch in case something's going to happen. They have that same fear that this may be the end. And there was some discussions and some clarifications to them on some possible sites. And then he immediately called me afterwards, and I didn't know they were going to visit him. There's no obligation to tell me about it, but he immediately called me afterwards, and he goes, was I supposed to talk to them? I said, dude, why are you asking me that? And he laughed, and he says, well, I just, I want to make sure that, I don't lose you as far as whatever we're going to do. And I said, well, what was going on? And he goes, well, I kind of screwed up and gave him some bad information. I didn't realize it until I got to my cell, but the more I think. So I want to clarify it with you so that you can straighten it out. And I had a really good visit with him on Sunday. We got a lot of the locations hopefully ironed out. And then I contacted the team, and we're supposed to meet actually this Thursday.
So I just have one question about that. So when this cat and mouse game that both of you guys are playing with these serial killers, and how you're trying to get information from them, and now the clock is ticking. Obviously, all the serial killers know why you're coming to visit them, correct? They know that you're doing this for an ultimate goal, that you're not just going there to hang out with them and be their friend.
They're well aware.
So with Shermantine, I mean, obviously he's not going anywhere. He's not getting out. So how do you position yourself, Rob, to just say, hey,
Well,
listen, to get that information?
I think the biggest problem with this, in fact, it's kind of funny because after I left the visit on Sunday, I went to a deputy that's a detective that had retired out of Marin. Him and I had lunch, and it's kind of a decompression. He was involved. How I met him is he has a case that's possibly related to them, the Speed Freak killers. And so I've known him for years. And there's a couple issues. Number one, a lot of these guys, I think, they like, obviously, the contact. They like the interaction. They like the, talking with someone. I mean, how many people are really seeing these guys? And I think some people, especially on the maybe law enforcement side, think of like, oh, well, they're just using you guys. They're just using you guys. And, what they're getting out of it is the visits, the talking, the interaction that, a lot of these people don't have being locked up. Maybe rightfully so. They shouldn't have it, maybe. But like my detective friend on the other hand said, but who else is doing this? Who else is spending your own time going and putting in that work, building that relationship and talking? And if it leads to 1, 2, 3, I mean, even just one recovery, I mean, that's an accomplishment that nobody else is doing.
I agree.
Exactly.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that it's this gigantic time-consuming chess game that both of you guys are playing, and you have other obstacles. It's like you have the institution that's kind of working against you as well. You would think that they have their, especially since you have other law enforcement agencies that are going to meet them to try to get same information, you would think that the institution and the CDC would understand what you're trying to do, support it, and to help you facilitate that quicker. But it sounds like it doesn't. It seems like they're just so mired down in their policies and procedures, and it's just like we're just the zookeepers. We don't want anything else to do but be the zookeepers.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem too, though, from the law enforcement standpoint, I mean, I think always their first goal is prosecution. I think that's always their first one. So obviously they have to be careful. We can't act as agents of them, or we can't, if there was a prosecution that would come out in court, well, wait, how did you get this information? If you came out with this, and that could be a problem. And I understand that as well. But I think the main goal is on 90% of this, there is no prosecution. Like, for example, like you said, he's not going anywhere. He's there.
Yeah.
So now it's about recovery. Now
Exactly.
it's about closure to families.
That's what I'm saying. There's no legal remedies. There's no legal remedies left for him.
Right.
And there's no you can't continue to prosecute this person.
He actually still hasn't had his appeal, though.
Appeal for what, though? Appeal for what?
Well, his main is when you get sentenced to death, you have an automatic state appeal. He has not had his yet.
Mm-hmm. But
he went in 2001, and he still hasn't had his appeal. That's part of the problem with California. Why the voters voted to speed up this process, because the appellate process it's an automatic appeal for any death penalty inmate is at least 25 years out, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're appealing the death penalty when there is no death penalty in California.
Right.
So it's like, what are they appealing?
Yeah.
They would go through the process of spend all the legal time and money and effort and resources to do a legal appeal on something that doesn't exist.
Right.
So he's not getting out, even if he won his appeal for the death penalty. They would just say, oh, well, you don't have the death penalty anymore. You have life imprisonment, correct?
No, but the problem on our end, though, and I think Laura's heard this just like I have, are you going to come back? If I give you everything, that's it.
Charlie said that in this last visit, remember? He said to me, he goes, I can't tell you everything, Laura, because you won't come. I'm scared you won't come back.
Yeah, so that's the game of the endurance, is that they want this to drag out for life. And I've had it with Sherman time numerous times. I'm like, dude, I'm getting tired. And he's like, what are you getting tired about? I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, well, you may be there by yourself. You keep this up, it's just a game. It's back and forth. And now I think where we both have wiggle room is with this impending whatever could happen to him. Now's the time to do some deals.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why we've been on here every week,
I know. You guys have been holding vigil there, going in there, doing God's work, trying to find these victims' families, for these families.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy quest that you guys are on, and it's a worthy quest. But it just seems like there's a lot of opposing things going on that that shouldn't be happening. I think it's the biggest problem a lot of times with these cases is that no one works together. It's not like you two. It's not like you two are like civilians. I mean, you you're both private investigators. Laura's a criminologist. You do bounty hunter, so you were at law enforcement. So it's not like you're not doing this for shits and giggles. Okay, you guys have a point and a purpose.
It's true. And I even had, a cold case homicide unit calling San Quentin, asking to give me more interview time with them. And this is coming straight from the homicide unit. And there was so much pushback from that.
What's the pushback?
It was just the pushback of extra time.
I know, but what's the rationale for that? As far as you have a law enforcement agency who they're looking to close cases, and then you have, why would the institution, if it was the FBI, if they asked for more time, they would give them more time, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but I think they don't recognize the overall picture of what's happening, because I think Laura's heard it, I've heard it, I heard it from, like I said, the detective at lunch. He's like, why don't and he questions it too. He's like, why don't these guys understand that, when an officer or detective comes in that's on the case, the inmate's going to push back to them and they're not going to get everything, where this is just a different avenue and it's actually working.
Yeah, it's working.
It's working.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like undercover work almost, because you really are in there really helping, for the families and law enforcement, but you have to be prison, with them and, in that cage with them. So it's a tightrope. It's a different dynamic, but it works.
Yeah. I mean, we get go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say some of the real good cops, the guys that were in homicide forever, the guys that, take these cases home with them, they love us because they don't have the time. They're restricted by either budget or, hey, that's an old case, go work on this one. This one's newer. This one, we've been down this road so many times, so don't even look at that. Don't waste your time. Families don't want to hear about that. Families out there want their case top of the pile every day. And unfortunately, there's just not enough law enforcement out there to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't like 10 years ago. But now there's really not.
Yeah. Right. And you guys came to the cold case unit with me.
Yes.
And you saw.
It was like, I've spent time in that building before. I've done a couple documentaries with the San Francisco Police Department, and it was empty. It didn't look that empty when I was there like 15 years ago.
It was empty.
Empty.
Everybody, the two guys were retired, who were just helping out on some of the cold cases.
Well, I think what happens, and this is like the psychology of people too, that are in those positions of authority, we deal with it because we get pushed back because, when we work cold cases just to try to give them airtime and expose them and get people to open up to us that wouldn't normally come to police. They feel safe to us because they don't feel like they're getting involved, but they want to further the case. And then, we get pushed back from some law enforcement saying, they don't want to participate. They don't want to hear from us. And then the smart ones, like you said, Rob, the ones that, know that they have 150 cold cases on their desk, welcome us. Because we're tilling the earth, we're shaking the trees, and they're hoping that somebody will come out and we'll find something. So I just don't understand why the only thing I think that stops that from happening, and it happens, and I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you've seen it happen, Rob, is the different levels of law enforcement, or even different districts or bureaus and stuff like that. There's an ego problem. And
I was just going to say.
There's an ego problem. And, and it's just like no one wants to give in to the other department. Everyone else is like, they hold on to information like it's theirs, like they own it, like they're the property owners on it. And they're not. They're not. That belongs to the public.
Yeah, and I think I've run into that numerous times. I'm sure you have too, Laura, that, to me, I don't care. I don't care what happens. I mean, I'm meeting with the cold case team Thursday so that we can define these certain areas for possible recoveries. And, and they've offered, come out with us and make sure that, we're on the same page. And I told him, I said, I don't care if you're right, and he came back and thought, oh crap, I didn't want to say that. So he's going to give me some different information. We have two different conflicting things, but in the same area. So let's just check them both. And hey, you guys do a recovery. You get a win. And the family gets the bigger win. Exactly. I don't care who gets it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'm just a little, and I don't know why, and I know for you, it's you guys are very tenuous because you have to be in there. You're rushing to get there. But I don't understand why the warden doesn't understand, isn't aware of the work that you guys are trying to do, knowing that you guys are on a time crunch. The only thing I can say is that they just don't care, and they just don't want to get caught up in the labor of it. They don't want to be caught up. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to get those guys out of there, and I'm sure they're aware that something's going to happen to these guys, these high value targets out in other prisons, and they're basically giving them the death penalty anyway.
Well, and something I forgot to mention this to you, Laura, that I'm sure because you go there and see different people and they're kind of getting used to you. It was kind of funny when I went Sunday to see Shermantine. One of the guards recognized me and he said, "Hey, weren't you here yesterday seeing somebody else?" Like, it was irritation in his voice, almost to like, "Yeah, what are you up to? What are you doing?" And to me, I first went to like a security thing. Like, are you thinking I'm trying to see different inmates bringing something in or what? I mean, it was great that he was identifying that, but it was just his response was really more of a derogatory response. Like, weren't you just here yesterday seeing somebody else?
Yeah.
Well, that's a big problem that I ran into is I've had 2 guards now go up to inmates and tell them about where I've been and who I was visiting with during the time, which is a very dangerous thing to do, to go to other inmates and get that information about me to them. And so that is something I have run into a lot this trip.
Well, for them, that's contraband. For them, for the inmates, that's something that they can give to them. Information is power, and on the inside there, I mean, anything that they're going to get from the outside, especially from a correctional officer, they're going to it's like, oh wow, I got, it gives them power, and it's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing, and I know it happens. I know that every institution, jail, prison, they get things smuggled in all the time, and a lot of it goes through the staff.
Yeah. So when you're in there, it's not just the inmates you have to look out for. You're in an environment where you have to watch everyone in your surroundings.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny how small of a world it is too. Like there was a joke about that when Laura and I kept interacting together because we'd end up being there at the exact same time and talk to other people. And when it first happened, I think it was Mark that brought up that Rob's loyal to his guy. Like just me and him have a relationship, but Laura's got a couple guys.
Yeah.
It's just. They know that. They all interact with each other and they all talk about things. So you have to really be careful how the game is played.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely it's a little bit of a Russian roulette there.
It is. It's the most dangerous game you could play.
Mm-hmm. And all right. Well, listen, excited about you guys going back in and seeing what other information you can get from him, but kind of crack the code there because when we met you, Rob, for the first time, it's like over a month and a half ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you were trying to do that then. So the fact
and part of it was that whole approval process and everything else because we were concerned about that,
Well, that doesn't make sense for me because you guys, I mean, Rob, how long have you been seeing Shermantine?
Well, they're over 20 years.
20 years. And Laura's been there for 10 years. So you guys have a combined 30 years of going in and out of San Quentin for the same thing, the same reason, for the victims' families, trying to find and recover these remains. And the fact that you continue to get some sort of opposition from the same prison. It'd be different if you guys were bouncing around, going to prison to prison to prison to prison. I can understand because they're all their own entities. But the same one, the fact that you get the same kind of runaround is kind of ridiculous. And especially since you're not doing anything other than just trying to help the victims' families.
Well, but I think part of it, though, just to give them some credit, is I think they're just being very structured because you've also got these, I don't know what I would call them, but kind of knuckleheads that kind of do the same thing as far as the multiple visits and everything. But theirs is profit generated. They're trying to make a relationship, get the inmate to send them something so that they can go sell it on the website. And so everybody knows who those people are, and there is a few of them. And I don't know the guards know the difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's another issue because, I don't know that it's a good thing that we would want to approach staff and say, hey, here's our plan, because just like, that power, knowledge is power, and that could be used against us.
Yeah.
You got to hold everything close to your chest when you're going there.
Yeah, I get it. I guess there's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely in that environment.
All right, guys. All right, so you're going back in on Friday, you said, or Saturday?
Saturday. I have him locked down for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday so we can pick and choose, but I think we're going to do Saturday with him. And
we could even do Friday. We kind of left that open if you needed your time, but now it may have changed. So
I have Carpenter too Friday, and I might have just closed one of a case connected to him, so we might want to do Saturday. But I was also going to tell you guys, Rob and I are actually going to be opening Charles Ng's property box and going through the belongings that I was able to obtain.
Okay, great. When are you going to do that? This weekend?
This weekend, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I guess you'll share the video with us when you're going to go through it. That'd be interesting if you want to. All right, guys. Well, listen, This has been great. Great work. Awesome. Be careful up there. And
Laura, do you feel like you're making progress with him, though?
I do. And I think, last Saturday, it did go really well with Rob too. So we're getting there. We are getting there.
Yeah, well, because you just started with him, basically.
Yeah, 9 months ago, 8-9 months ago. He's really a brand new inmate to me.
Yeah.
So
The one thing I want to add is that I don't think people will realize how big of a step it is to the point where Laura's at now. I mean,
it is.
he's not one that will talk to anybody to begin with at all. And she's broken down barrier after barrier after barrier to now get to a point where we're both in there, and that's going well. I mean, these are huge things separate from, sure, there's a lot of killers, there's a lot of people that we're trying to get closure for, victims, but this is like the top of the food chain right now.
Yeah, and I mean, where we're at right now, even though it's been about 8 months since when I've started, I mean, usually this could take years before you can even bring somebody, even a family member, in to meet them, or for them to have that level of trust, even for you to do so. So we are making leaps and bounds, with him in a short amount of time.
I agree. I mean, I know a lot of producers have reached out to him. He doesn't talk.
He only talks. There's only one other woman. She is a religious woman from a spiritual group. It's the only other person he speaks with.
Have you spoken to that woman at all?
I've seen her, but I've never spoken with her.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, he doesn't talk to anybody.
No, that's why I'm saying what you're doing is just amazing work and groundbreaking, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So thank you for sharing with us. And Rob, it was great to talk to you again. Keep us posted over the weekend. We'll check in with you guys.
Yeah, we'll check in with you.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and check out extra content from all of our podcasts. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.